Here we are. Welcome. Welcome to Monday Night Live. It's Yvonne here from Women's Fitness Adventures. The weather has turned chilly, so lots of stories to share about hiking in colder weather as well this evening. But I would like to share a story about myself that some of you may not know. And I was prompted to mention this when I was chatting to a colleague on the weekend. So hopefully you'll find this story interesting. Some of you may know snippets of it, but probably not likely. Keen to hear your own version of this story as it relates to you as well. So if you're watching, please go ahead and say hi. It's Yvonne here, founder and CEO of Women's Fitness Adventures. I've been doing this for 10 years, taking women on teaching, taking and training women for hiking adventures all over the world. So we have had some pretty special moments. We've seen some amazing friendships. We have seen such empowerment and growth in women, all by getting up and out and into the outdoors. So if you're watching, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and whether you're watching live or whether you are watching a replay. Hello, Mandy, and hello, Sandra, as well. So some of you may know, some of you, we were talking in our member online walk yesterday that I had my 40-year school reunion on Saturday. Yeah, so I've just given away my age. There you go, 40 years since high school. So I am, how old am I now? 57. So what I didn't say in yesterday's Walk and Talk, which is a program that we do with our members online. We connect online wherever we are and we go for a walk in our own area, is that when I was chatting to a friend in the afternoon, I was talking to her about the school reunion and just some of the comments. I'm going to share some of those comments. Still young and glamorous. Thank you very, very much, Mandy. You can stay. So what you may not know about me is that this is going to relate to some of you, and I would love it if you could share your story back to me. So when I was, so I'm not particularly tall. I'm 5'2". I'm probably been this same height since I was 12 years old. And when I was in primary school, I have two sisters, so I never had a brother. Dad tried to teach us a whole lot of sports. I can bowl a cricket ball pretty well, and I can bat, and I can do, some of those things that were traditionally boys' things, because I think Dad secretly might have wanted a son. But all through school, I was not a sports person. So this is my journey from a sport dodger to a passionate hiker and runner. Now, when I say I'm a sports dodger, it doesn't mean I'm a health dodger. I've never been a health dodger. But in primary school, because I was always the shortest in class, I always had to sit in the front of the photos. And if any one of you is like that, please let me know, because I'd love to. It would make me feel more comfortable if someone watching was one of these short people that had to sit down the front of the class all the time in the class photos. And always in my primary school, we had to line up in height, even in high school. And I remember going to my first day of high school on the orientation, year 7, because I went to high school in Melbourne, so year 7. And I remember the older students saying, "Look how small those kids are," and pointing to me. So, I'm the same height as I was when I was 12, I think. So anyway, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because when I was in primary school, thank you, Ellen. Yeah, I know. Every photo I'm in, I seem to be at the front, unless there's a platform there and I'll get up on the platform. So whenever there were sports days and stuff, and those were the days where it's probably wasn't as politically correct as it is now. And, they would let the kids choose the teams, like you'd play softball and, the sporty kid would be chosen as the captain and would just pick off, have you, and then the next one would have you. And I was always the last one to be chosen because people just assumed that because I was so little, I had no sporting ability whatsoever. And maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't, but that was the pattern that kept on playing out. And that's what I led myself to believe, that as a for running races and for basketball and, not basketball, because I did end up playing it, for softball and for team relays and stuff like that, that I wasn't, I wasn't particularly, the assumption was I wasn't particularly fast, but I never got to play that out. So I never really got to test whether I was. And I remember in primary school one particular day, and I had to be in the running races for some reason. And I got to the point, for some of you who know me, I'm competitive, but only with myself. So put me in a race, put me in anything like that, and I'm not particularly competitive. So I got put in this running race. And in those days, there was only first, second, and third ribbons. There was no participation ribbon or anything like that. And I would really hate the thought of competing to that in that environment, that I would actually run for maybe a 100-meter race, maybe run for 5 or 10 meters and then fake falling over and hurting myself so I wouldn't actually have to finish the race. That's the extent. And then, of course, that cycle kept going. She falls over all the time. She can't possibly be capable of any sports. So then I moved primary school to high school, and it was kind of the same thing. And then I moved to another high school up here in Noosa. So Marie, I was up your way on the weekend. That's where I went to high school. And I bumped into some of the high school people. I didn't bump, it was planned. It was a reunion that I hadn't seen in 40 years. And they asked me what I did. And I told them, I teach, train and take women on hiking adventures all over the world. And that I also run. And they looked at me, because these girls were and if you're watching, you know who you are, they're new back into my world. They're looking at me going, since when did you start running? And my other girlfriend, who I hadn't seen in 40 years, and we were very good friends back in high school, she looked at me and goes, yeah, we used to, if for those of you who know the term, if you're watching in Australia, we used to wag those days at school, even the swimming ones, because, the school had some really sporty kids, and it was, points were given not for participation, but points were given for just, first, second and third. So it wasn't really encouraging. And I think perhaps today, we may not have the balance quite right, but in participation is key, because if we think that we aren't good at it, we're probably not going to try, right? So here I am, still this 5'2" person in high school who couldn't run or couldn't do anything like that. I could play tennis. I was quite good at tennis. I could play basketball. I know, 5'2", playing basketball in a small country town. So that was okay. I was a fast little forward through there. But it wasn't until, and I had always been interested in my health. So I wasn't, in primary school and high school, we think that, we're generally well. We generally, if we get sick, we get well. We don't have to think too much about it. But as we get older, we actually have to be proactive in our wellness. So as I moved through into my working life and moved around, the country like Australia a lot, I became more and more interested in my own health and my own wellness and looking after myself. And as kids, our parents would always take us, away for weekends and adventures, and we do lots of hiking and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I got to my 40s that my journey with running and hiking and really making space for myself started to happen. So I'm just going to check in with who's here now. So hold on to that thought. And if you're watching on the replay, please let me know. So hello, Margaret from Cairns. You made it live today. That's awesome. Marie from Noosa, Courtney, Karen from Claremont, Ellen from Sydney. Looks like you're having a great time down there, Ellen. Ellen was always in the front like me. Hello, Susan from Newcastle and Jelena from Toowoomba. Leonie from Gympie. Courtney says, I never thought of it from the other side. I always thought the obnoxiously tall kid who got chosen first for the sports teams. Oh, you were always that. Okay. I used to like beating the boys, so I was very competitive. Yeah. So I was never chosen first for the sports teams. And Vicky says, I would always wag school as well, but Mum would write a note and I had to practice piano for the Stanford exams instead. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I'm not alone, right? And hello, Sharon from the Gold Coast. But if I think about that in more detail, it's this. That's where the stories, it goes along with singing in the choir, right? But some of you know I quite love singing. Is that it's the stories that we tell ourselves from a long time ago that we can hang on to, and we hang on to those stories because they serve us well. And we often think that I couldn't possibly do that, or I wouldn't be very good at that, or I'm not going to try that because I don't have the skills. So we can get stuck on these same stories. Or I injured my leg in that fake running, tragedy, and I could never go in a running race again, or I could never go hiking, or I could never, I twisted my little finger when the dog bit it and I could never play piano or something like that. It's those stories that and they're exaggerations, by the way, but it's those stories that we tell ourselves that can sometimes get into our subconscious and play over and over in our heads. And I think that that's where we need to think about, what do we want in our life, and what do we want, how rich, not in terms of wealth, but wealth is health. How rich do we want our lives to become by the decisions and the choices and the conversations that we have in our head? So into my 20s, in my 20s, I did a lot of travel and this love of adventure in the world and seeing places and spaces that the world couldn't see. And in the 30s came, children. And it wasn't until in my 40s, when I had a really stressful corporate job, that I decided, and I've heard this lots with the people that we're talking about, the women we're talking to with the Couch to Mountain program for this year, is that I was feeling burnt out. I was in a very high profile job that was very stressful as well. And I needed to find that circuit breaker that would make me switch off from work, that would make me put myself first, even if it was for 10 minutes, that did not have any connection to anything else in my life. And I needed to go and search for that. And if that is, I know I talk to a lot of our members all the time, and I know that's the story, one of the reasons for some of you becoming members. There's lots of other reasons as well. But that's what I'm hearing right now from women all across the countryside, is that I need that thing for me. I'm feeling really burnt out. I need the distraction. I need the accountability. I need something that will absorb me and help me find my place back in the world again. So when I was at the reunion on Saturday, and I said to them, I'm doing this marathon and I'm doing this and this, and they're just looking at me going, when did you start? When did you start running? I said, in my mid 40s. And it was almost a double take that it's like, how do you turn that switch from something that you had never really done, that you had avoided, that you thought wasn't for you, that you had told yourself that story for such a long time? How do you flick that switch to make it be something that you actually proactively want to do? And I drove up to Noosa and back, which is like a 2-hour drive each way. So I had lots of time to think about all these conversations in my head in the car. And I think for me, and I just had I had spoken to a writer a couple of weeks ago who was doing an article on women reinventing themselves in their 50s. And I answered all of her questions. And one of her questions was, so why do you reinvent? And I was thinking about this a lot on the weekend. I was thinking about my running. I was thinking about the creation of women's fitness adventures, of the stories we tell ourselves, of the things we hang on to because we think they serve us. And for me, it's the reinvention, or the stepping into me, the stepping away from those things that weren't serving me. And as I said, that's what I'm seeing a lot of in Couch to Mountain, is that the burnt out, the frenetic pace of life isn't serving women well, and they are looking for a community. They are looking for a focus. They are looking for that accountability, and they are looking for that relevance of a place that will find them, that will be for them. But I think for me, it's about remaining relevant as well, and relevant in my own life. And for all of you, that comparison to your own life is the only comparison that matters, because in the lead up to the reunion, people say, why do you go? Is it comparison? Is it, finding out, why are you going? I don't think it's about comparison. I think it's about the journey and the person that you are, and how relevant you are to your own life. And, the journey is only with ourselves, and it's when we compare. Nobody wins when we compare, but that journey within ourselves. So I share this story, and I don't share it often because people think that I've always been, this runner, hiker, business owner. I haven't been any of those things ever before. And it wasn't until I made that conscious decision of that kid I was in primary school, I'm still the same height. I still have the same values. I've never let go of my values. But that kid in primary school decided as an adult to get rid of those things, that she was never a good runner, never a good singer, still not a good singer, but I will sing, that was always last to be picked on the team. Those things, they get in your head. And I want to keep trying things. I want to keep doing new things. And that's where I decided that Women's Fitness Adventures needed to be a place, needed to be a space for women to, let go of some of the stories that we've told ourselves, to be that place for, if you want to get into hiking, then this is the place to do it. If you want to be around women, all of you in my community, and I spoke about this yesterday, I am so much richer for having the Women's Fitness Adventures members in my world. It is the richness of the conversation, the richness of the spirit, of curiosity, the richness of simply being you by the questions you ask, the supportive nature, the vulnerability, the openness and the honesty. I am so much richer for every single one of you being in my life for however long that is. And my goal is that every woman should have that opportunity to be part of something. Now, let me check in here. Sandra says, I prefer the term stepping into rather than reinventing. It is all about being more and more courageous to discover and live one's life authentically. Absolutely, Sandra. And you are a perfect wordsmith, and you've said it much better than I could. And it isn't well, reinvention is probably the term that everybody knows. And I guess that humbleness that we have inside Women's Fitness Adventures of stepping into is evidence of just how humble we are, rather than say reinventing. So I encourage any of you who are watching, who, I know there's many members here who have identified themselves. And if you're watching and you haven't, and I know there's many of you who've just like stuck a toe in and went, oh, I've been watching you for a long time, or my husband and I do your challenges when they're online, please say hi, because I put myself out there every single Monday so that I can share the wisdom of the many, many women, wonderful women who are in my world. So I would love to know who you are if you haven't said hello. But, I found in all of that, and you may have heard me say this before, the fitter I got, relevant to me, not to anyone else, I'm not comparing myself to anyone else, the fitter I got, the easier it became to deal with the challenges of life. It doesn't mean the challenges of life were any easier. It just became easier to deal with the challenges of life. And along with that came strength and courage and that openness and curiosity that we spoke about to try new things. I didn't have to be the best. I didn't have to be the fastest. I didn't have to be the expert. I just had to be willing. And that's the difference. That's the difference. There's been many moments throughout the last 10 years as well, because this year is all about our 10 years, where I could have let that story go back again, the stories that come up from our childhood, lots and lots of stories, but I didn't. I just kept going. And I think the strength of the community has helped me keep going there. So I guess the motto of this story is, when, it's never too late, my journey from that sports dodger to hiker is one that we should all embrace, because it's never too late, whether you're thinking about hiking, whether you are thinking about a multi-day adventure, whether you're just thinking about trying something new that's not even in the physical space, is when we're never too old. Age is but a number. It's our mindset and our attitude that is the age, not just our physical number of how we are. So it's never too late. And we've had our groups recently come back from Tuscany. We've had our groups on the Murray River right now who are, for the very first time, some women in their 50s, 60s, doing hiking for the very first time. And talk about, putting your hand up, talk about stepping into, talk about open to opportunities, to friendships, to richness in life. That is what there's just so much that's going to come from that. And I was on the Great Ocean Road, as some of you know, with the Great Ocean Walk with a few of you, hopefully, that are watching. And someone asked us today what the highlight was. And we couldn't answer. The whole thing was a highlight. Just the group dynamics, the cohesion, the spirit of adventure, the curiosity, the openness to support, be willing to each other. The great thing was it wasn't like primary school, that the team wasn't chosen. The team was not chosen. It was who wants to come. And I think that's one of the main things as well. So, I hope that you can connect the dots for your own life, that you don't have to be, it's never too late to start. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what fitness level you are. It doesn't matter where you live. It is never too late to start. So we have, if you're interested, and some of you who are already onto things, but if you're interested in learning more about multi-day hiking, we do have a webinar coming up in June, which is all about multi-day hiking. For our members, it's part of the masterclass series, but it actually will start to talk about what is a multi-day hike. I've just put the link in there. Is a multi-day hike right for me? All of those questions that everyone has. And even if you've been on many of our multi-day hikes, our showcase, our new adventures for 2025 will be coming out. By the end of the week, you should start to see some little pieces dripping onto our website. This masterclass or this webinar in June will give an overview of fitness levels, of gear and equipment, of preparation, trail training, that kind of thing. Not the actual training, but the type of thing that you need to do for training, so that you can think, have a couple of weeks to think about showcase and whether those adventures are in your wheelhouse, whether they are the type of thing that you want to do, or if there's something else in our portfolio that might work for you. So I really encourage you. It is a free webinar. Members and non-members are welcome to attend. So, if you're thinking, what am I going to do next year? How do I decipher what a multi-day adventure means for me, whether that is with us or whether that is with another company? How do I decipher that? So hopefully you have enjoyed my story. Please let me know what you think. That word WAG, if you're watching from anywhere else other than Australia, means that you skipped class for that day and without permission. Or your mum may have known and as Vicky said, written a note for you. So hopefully you got some little piece of information about me that you can relate to your story. And if you did, I'd love to hear in the comments below. So that's it from me for today. For our members, will be on book club tomorrow night. For those of you, we are having our Couch to Mountain webinar. So if Couch to Mountain is of interest to you, I'm not going to put a link in here and confuse it. Just put couch in there and I can send you a link. Of course, functional fitness or trail fit training is on this week as well. So there's so much going on. And our Welcome to Hiking bundle too, that I encourage you to, reach out, make comment on Facebook or, through our info. Please, big please here. Our team are on the Murray River Fitness Adventure right now. For most of them, it is their first ever multi-day adventure in their life. So when you see the posts coming through on our Facebook page, can you give them so much love and so much support and so much encouragement? Because as I've just shared with you, stepping into the unknown can be quite a scary place. But if they know that we are virtually holding their hand from wherever we may be in the world, it is going to make such a difference to them. And as we've got some new videos coming out this week, as you will see, it is that collective courage, the virtual holding of hands and the physical holding of hands that give us all that inspiration and motivation to just take that next step. And as those of you who have been on multi-day adventures with us know, that next step leads to a pretty wonderful place. So I really encourage you to look out for their posts, which are probably going to be morning and night for the rest of the week. So thank you for tuning in. I look forward to next week. And please, if you have a story like mine, just drop a note in here or email it to me, because I'd really love to hear, because I'm sure that I'm not the only person that had any of those running race stories from primary school. So thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.